So if you can start off by just telling me who you are and why you got into real estate.
Okay. Well, my name is Nate Chiu, and I got into real estate because I just felt like my natural skills and experience would lend itself well to helping clients and consulting, or just finding out information that and perspectives that people may not always be considering when dealing with real estate.
So what are those natural skills that you do?
So I come from a background of construction and technology deployment. There's a lot of detail work. There's a lot of perception is a very high skill that's needed there as well too. And I just think that with the way the market was going, I think people should work with someone who wants to look more carefully at what they're potentially selling.
Explain what that looks like to you. Are you going through a property with somebody?
At the time of, when I got my license, the market was heating up incredibly. Yeah. And I noticed that people were spending less and less time actually looking at the property.
Yeah.
And if you're not understanding even what they're looking at, how do you have time to go back to it later on, right? Yeah. Because the transactions were moving very fast, which historically this has kind of never happened before.
Yeah.
So I would say a lot of simple things that are a lot of principles of home inspection even.
Right.
Wear and tear, potential pain points, potential replacements, and maintenance items, things like that, that if you never owned a house before or you're just rushing through, you may not notice.
Right.
You could be getting set up for not a great experience after your purchase.
Or just real cost, right?
Right.
$10,000 roof replacement.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
$100,000 foundation repair.
Yeah, things that could and should be negotiated up front.
Right.
I would say so.
So your understanding of the physical structure, construction has kind of led you down what I would call an interesting path, which is to really think about the adaptive reuse of houses in the city, and then also probably the repurposing of land or infill projects in the city. Most notably those would be things like multiplexing, and then now infill development to a larger scale, like your missing middle housing.
Right. Yes.
Talk to me a little bit about that, because I know you're probably among, at least from a realtor perspective, you've got to be the most passionate guy when it comes to missing middle housing.
Well, it was something that was, I guess, an itch in the back of my brain for a long time, where I already knew Toronto was a big city, world-class city for a long time now.
Yeah.
And just from traveling around the world and just seeing how the rest of the world lives, coming back to Toronto, I was like, what's going on here? Why, why doesn't this exist in a meaningful amount and scale here?
Yeah.
What's the problem? And fortunately, that led me down a really, really big rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And by actually, I think it was May 2023, I thought that, wow, there's some serious new changes coming along in the city's planning department. I feel like our city is at an inflection point now. I think at this point, the door has kind of been cracked open a little bit for change, to, I think, give property owners more freedom and permission, which I think that shouldn't have existed in the first place. That property owners should be able to reconfigure or redevelop their property as they see fit for their vision.
Yeah. The first time that we saw a big upzoning in the city of Toronto was with the multiplexes, and I know you and I approached a lot of owners in residential neighborhoods about notifying them of the change and saying, hey, your property likely went up in value, or at least output value. You can now put 4 units on it rather than 1. How was that received? Because I think that it's interesting, and it would segue nicely to why major streets might be a little bit different.
Right. It was actually very interesting. There's definitely one story that sticks out, where a lot of, I would say, older owners saw it as a condo building or a big box box coming to their street soon, and it was just something that they didn't want for their street or their neighborhood. And when I asked them if their kids or their relatives had to move away to afford somewhere to live, you could kind of see the wheels screech for a second there. And they said, well, yes. And then I proposed to them, well, this policy allows someone to redevelop their property, and perhaps, the families can live with flexibility and independence once again, back in their neighborhoods. And things like that. Like how does that change how you think about this? And then you can hear the wheels really screech. I think how regular people in general see our housing market, I think there's some indoctrination there, because you could really tell that they're trying to find new excuses to resist this or not accept it, or that it wasn't right for them or their neighborhood and all these things. And in a sense, I still find it encouraging. I just think that shifting perspectives for our city is probably one of the most important things that has to happen before this really gets taken up. And for major streets, I think people are already, in a sense, used to it. A lot of Toronto is on the major streets is about 3 to 4 stories.
I think you expect density on a main road.
Right.
And also I think that the lift for us going out and prospecting people who own major streets, like let's assume that your answer to this question could be part of the marketing campaign for the major streets.
Yeah, it would be fun.
Most people who live on a main road don't necessarily want to live on a main road. They probably would prefer to move maybe into a neighborhood or whatever it is. So you do get a lot of investment properties there, but either you get people who maybe when they lived on the road, it was, they're getting 20,000 cars a day, and now they're getting 40,000 cars a day. And that's a very, very palpable difference, right? And so now they're like, I'm eager to move from this location, but the market for a property on the main road was it's not nearly as liquid as a property in the neighborhood right behind that main road, right? Now all of a sudden the tables turned, right? Developers can't build high-rise buildings. People can now build 10-unit buildings on all of these major streets, and the people who have the houses that were undesirable 6 months ago now have potentially the most lucrative, the most desirable investments in the city of Toronto. Would you expect that your approach when you're going to be knocking on the doors of people who own homes on major streets is going to be a lot easier of a lift than trying to pitch the idea of a fourplex in a residential neighborhood?
Well, I think, and I'd love to talk to you again after we've done this and see what actually happens, but I think we're going to get a really big mixture of people that want to talk about it in general and not have I think it's less likely that they'll have such a one-sided reaction to the potential of the property on a major street being redeveloped or converted or have some value added to it in the form of extra units or maybe more spacious units and things like that. So I think if you live on a major street, you've been there for a while, you've seen the city change drastically, I would say, in the last 10 years at least, if not the 10, then 15, even 5. So you're already in tune, I think, with the fact that a city changes. And I think the only way that a city can grow is if its citizens have options that fit their life stages. Yeah.
Is there anything that you want people to know, whether it be people who are looking to invest in multiplex or missing middle product, or people who are looking to sell maybe a house on a main road or sell a house to a fourplex investor? What kind of advice or information do you want people to know?
I think because this is early on, I think early adopters are going to be, you want to go after people who are less price sensitive and more, I think, prioritize the qualitative
Right.
aspects of a property more than just the price.
Mm-hmm.
So in a sense, I feel like perhaps builders and developers or even realtors will start looking at real estate for its more qualitative properties rather than just a purely quantitative perspective of, you know, always goes up kind of thing. I think, you know, people are really going to start looking at how is this place going to change and how is it going to benefit my potential lifestyle,
Mm-hmm.
5 years from now, 10 years from now, because I think in an environment where prices are not doubling year over year almost,
Yeah.
you know, we have to shift our perspectives and shift our mindsets towards, you know, what is value actually,
Mm-hmm.
aside from just the price.
Right. Yeah, and how do we create
it?
It's funny, like, you know, I mean, it's like the first time in history that, you know, a realtor has ever been able to solve the problem about, you know, every seller wanting their house to be worth more than it is.
Right.
But nobody's actively making an effort to solve that problem right now. I mean, I think we're the only people who are getting architectural studies done on our listings about how to multiplex them, architectural studies done on our listings on how to maximize them from a major streets perspective.
Right.
That's, I think, what's going to really set us apart from a marketing perspective. I guess the final piece that I want to chat with you on is, I know you've been putting a ton of work into training the multiplex bot and the major streets bot.
Oh, yeah.
What is it? Explain to me this process, because I want to celebrate the fact that we have our agents like actively involved in the development of an AI company, right? Like, this is meaningful stuff from my perspective. So talk to me a little bit about, because like I kind of just gave you the task and you just ran out of it and crushed it. So I like an update would be great.
It definitely took me down some rabbit holes for sure.
Yeah.
It's interesting for sure. Like I you know, all of us don't really have a roadmap of how to go about doing that. So in a sense, I was teaching myself to teach the AI.
Yeah.
And I think rewrite the information that I'm absorbing into a format that the AI can understand and call back on, so that it can put it back out there when someone else asks these questions to it.
Mm-hmm.
In it, they don't have, I would say, the in-depth and background knowledge and research that we've all been doing over the last few years. I'm trying to find ways to put that into our AI bots and have it break down, you know, things that are probably hundreds of pages long to, you know, spit it back out in 10 pages or less, or 5 pages or less, or something like that.
I think a lot of it is about, like, it's a transparency exercise, right? Like, the industry that we're in, the real estate industry, is, I mean, it's very poorly regarded, frankly. And one of the reasons for that is because we have been protective of this information asymmetry, right? The fact that consumers don't get as much information as the real estate professionals.
Right.
And now all of a sudden you know, we've kind of entered this, like, I just saw you on the Toronto Open Data website as an example. Like, we've entered this environment where we have a very powerful tool that can aggregate that information for sellers very quickly. And so now it's, how do we get this in the hands of everyone, right? How do we tell them, because even if they don't list with Valery, right? Even if they see your flyer and they say, I'm going to call so-and-so down the street because they, you know, they've been here and their face is on the bus stop and they've been here for whatever, 20 years. But that person might undersell the property because they don't know that it's upzoned from a major streets perspective. Now all of a sudden, because that person has seen your flyer, scanned the QR code, gone to your website and punched their address in, they at least are armed with that information, so that when an offer comes in, they say, no, this is what, you know, this person needs to be paying a premium because of this thing, right?
I think it boils down to stewardship.
Right.
I think is the word. I mean, it just seems like our industry has been providing stewardship just for our industry. And I think that it's that stewardship we should be providing to our potential clients and people that we work with. I think it has to go that way instead. Like you put it, this information asymmetry that, you know, is one of the fundamental points of why, why to seek out a good realtor to help you
Yeah.
interpret and share some perspective. And I think that we need to be doing more of it and doing better at it, and just arming clients with the best information that we can get, that they can get, and then helping them make a great decision for all of our futures, collective futures, really, especially when we talk about missing middle housing and adding housing units and creating options. Not everyone wants a backyard, not everyone wants a detached house, not everyone, and at the
Also,
same time,
not everyone wants a 70-story
right,
concrete.
not everyone wants to live one of 700 units and things like that. So we need a much wider gamut of options, housing options in general for people.
I think that we're going through this natural correction in the market right now where it's forced us to rethink our priorities, and we have like this limited window to get it right. Because these are structures that are going to last hypothetically forever, the lifetime of a human being, right? Like forever for you and me sitting in this table.
Right.
And so the doing it right means something, because if you build a fourplex today, it's going to be there for the rest of your life and for the rest of my life.
Right.
And our kids probably as well. I think that it's crazy how hastily and wastefully we make these decisions as if it doesn't matter. And I think we've finally taken a step to say, hey, let's stop and do it the right way.
Yeah, I'm very, I would say, very aware of that fact. I feel like the work that we're probably doing here now, we may not see the full results and fruits of what we're doing in our lifetime, but bearing sense to keep at it and be positive about it and just keep sharing that, hey, things could be different, and it's really just words on a piece of paper that's holding everyone back, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It's very interesting that it's just it is just bylaws that are holding, I would say, the collective potential of everyone that owns property and everyone that wants to own property, holding them back. So it's a strange but beautiful, I would say, monster of an industry to be working in. Yeah. So
awesome. That's it, man.
That's it. No,
Yeah,
cool,
thank you.
man.
I appreciate it.